Today on the Stay at Home Chef, I'm showing you how to cook steak perfectly every time. This method works for any cut of steak and will help you achieve the perfect steak every single time. There's no need to be intimidated by cooking steak because it's actually super easy, and I'm going to show you how. The first thing you need to do is pull your steaks out and let them sit at room temperature for at least 30 minutes. If you're using frozen steaks, you'll want to thaw them in the fridge first, but you do want them to come to room temperature. And if you'll notice, we're using nice thick steaks. Thick steaks are actually easier to cook perfectly. Thin steaks will cook too fast and may even dry out, so choose a good thick steak. Today we're using a couple of New York strip steaks, but this same method works with ribeye or T-bone or even filet, so choose a cut of steak that you like. You can see this steak has some nice marbling in it and some fat around the outside. There are actually 3 different grades of beef: select, choice, and prime, and it's all based on the marbling and flavor in the beef. Now, the difference between select and choice is actually pretty big, so I always recommend choosing at least choice grade or prime grade beef when you're making steak. This is actually a choice grade New York steak. Once your steaks have had a chance to sit out at room temperature for 30 minutes, preheat your oven to 375 degrees Fahrenheit and heat a large, heavy skillet on the stove until it's smoking hot. Then we'll prep our steaks. Drizzle just a little bit of olive oil onto each steak and rub it into the top and the sides, as well as the bottom. Then we're gonna put together our rub. Today I'm gonna keep it super simple and just use a mixture of salt and pepper. I'm gonna use a teaspoon of salt, half a teaspoon of black pepper, and half a teaspoon of white pepper, and mix these together. You can add other spices and herbs, but I like to keep it simple and let the meat shine. We're gonna take this mixture, sprinkle it over our steaks, and rub it right in. You want to make sure you do both sides. Now, since these steaks are really thick, you want to go a little more heavy-handed than you might think. Before we go over and cook our steaks, there's one last thing we want to do. I like to finish off my steaks with butter, so I'm going to make a little garlic compound butter here by mixing 2 tablespoons of softened butter with 1 to 2 cloves of crushed garlic, and you just mash that together with a fork. You can also add in fresh herbs to this butter to make it an herbed compound butter, but I'm keeping it simple with just a little bit of garlic. Next, we're gonna head on over to the stove, and I'm pretty sure our skillet is smoking hot, which is exactly what we need. Place the steaks down directly into the pan. You don't need oil or anything. And we're gonna sear each side of the steak for 2 to 3 minutes per side. And then, since these have a little fat strip that runs along the side, you wanna render that fat down, so just turn it onto its side and hold it there with tongs. You always wanna render the fat so you don't end up with a chewy piece of fat around the edges. Once it's seared on both sides and you've rendered the fat, then just slide them in the oven to finish cooking. The amount of time that you need to leave your steaks in the oven varies depending on how long you seared your steaks and how thick they are. A good rule of thumb is about 5 minutes per inch, but if you want 100% accurate results, use a meat thermometer. I pull my steak out when it reaches 130 degrees Fahrenheit for a good medium rare. The steaks will need to rest for at least 10 minutes before serving, so you want to dollop on a tablespoon of butter onto each one, so it'll melt over the steak while it rests. As you let your steaks rest, the internal temperature will continue to rise by about 5 degrees. It's important to let your steaks rest because it gives them a chance for the juices to reabsorb into the meat, giving you the juiciest, most perfect steak possible. After 10 minutes of resting, you are ready to eat. Thanks for watching. You can find the full written recipe in the video description. Be sure to subscribe, like, and follow, and check out the rest of my videos where you can find hundreds of restaurant quality recipes you can easily make at home. See you later.